The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Josh Richards and I'm the Marketing Director at Merit Solutions. And I want to first thank you all for joining us today for this webinar titled Improve Financial Performance and Reporting with Microsoft Dynamics 365. I think we have a great session planned for today, but prior to giving control over to our presenters, I wanted to cover a couple of housekeeping items quickly first. So first, we want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be shared with attendees following the event. All attendees are currently in listen-only mode. However, we invite you to submit any questions or comments you have using the GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll try to save time at the end of the session for Q&A with our presenters today. Finally, today's session is the third webinar in our series titled Leading Life Sciences to Success in a Digital Future. And there we go. If you look at the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the three titles that are in red. Those are the first two webinars in today's webinar. The first two related to validation principles and best practices and reasons why Dynamics 365 is a great solution for CFOs in the life sciences industry. So if you missed these sessions, they are available for download and viewing on our website via the link in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide here. You could reach out to myself or our presenters today if you want access to those and can't find it on the site. Today's session kicks off the product demo portion of the series where we'll start taking a look at the Dynamics 365 and MaxLife 365 platforms. Today, Carol and Vanessa, our presenters, will provide a brief platform overview of Dynamics 365, and then the next couple of sessions and then they'll go through some of the financial management capabilities, reporting capabilities, and then the next couple of sessions will dive deeper into topics like manufacturing, quality, cloud security, and cloud validation. So I think that's enough up front for me. I'd like to take a moment now to introduce you to our presenters today, Carol van de Poel of Microsoft and Vanessa Robinson of Merit Solutions. Carol has been working as an ERP specialist for the past 20 years at Oracle and Microsoft, working with organizations needing complex accounting, project-related, and financial reporting solutions. Vanessa also has 20 years of experience working with clients in numerous roles related to ERP and financial management, including as an ERP application manager, senior consultant, project manager, solution architect, and now as a principal consultant with Merit Solutions. So without further delay, Carol and Vanessa, the floor is now yours.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is Carol van de Poel from Microsoft. So before we get started, I thought I would just talk to a couple of slides about the Dynamics 365 solution in its entirety. So today is focused around the finance piece. But know that for those who are not familiar with the Dynamics 365 solution, it is a end-to-end solution leading from CRM type activities, sales, marketing, field service, all the way to operations around, manufacturing, supply chain, customer service, project management and project service automation, and finally all integrated into the back-end finance piece. So looking at this from more of a traditional module type approach, here's an example of each functional area and then sort of the sub-modules underneath that are included in the suite. So again, today we're going to be focusing on the financial management solution. So you'll see there are a lot of capabilities within that, from general ledger to cash and bank management to budget planning and control and compliance. Additionally, there's project solutions as well, which we won't be covering today, but again, we won't be touching every single functional area here, but we'll kind of be taking a walk through some of the key areas and what differentiates Dynamics 365. So without further ado, for about the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to take a walk through the solution, and I'd like you to keep in mind some of the unique characteristics of the solution, and that is that Dynamics 365 is purpose-built, and we'll take a look at that. It's a highly productive system. You'll see that the user interface and the layout is very Microsoft-esque. So for those of us who use Microsoft solutions, I think you'll find the solution really easy from a usability standpoint. There's a lot of embedded intelligence throughout the suite, which helps us folks in finance do analysis and look at high-level analytical type information, but also having the ability to drill down to details if needed. Additionally, it's a very adaptable solution, so I'll show a few examples of this as well as I walk through the demonstration, so that you can take what's core within the solution and tailor it to your unique company needs as well as even your unique user needs. So those features really help to, I think, bring down the total cost of ownership of putting in a solution like this. Microsoft's put a lot of effort into making that piece of it really easy, particularly for all the functional areas, but particularly for the finance group. So let's jump online and take a look at the solution. So here I've logged in as a super user within the Dynamics 365, and what I'm presented with is a selection of pre-built workspaces. Now typically a user would probably only see one, maybe two, maybe three of these individual workspaces, but because I'm logged in as a super user, I like to bounce around to different areas. So I have access to a lot of workspaces that are pre-built. So the question is, what is a workspace? So again, that's the purpose-built aspect of the solution. Workspaces are around a given role within an organization and a functional process. So ones that are great examples are in the finance area is the topic of financial period close. So as we all know in the finance group, that financial period close is a set of tasks. Sometimes tasks are dependent on each other, and it's sometimes hard to keep track. People have sticky notes and all of that sort of stuff on their desk, or maybe they have a checklist kind of offline. So what Dynamics 365 and Microsoft has put forth is they've put together the lists of tasks and functions that is configurable, of course, but that would give a controller or a CFO or assistant controller, somebody who's in charge of that process, to have a visual representation of everything that's related to that functional and purpose-built process. So here, again, I've logged in and I'm a super user, and I happen to be the controller for not only the US entity, but for my Russian entities, my Great Britain entities, so on and so forth. So it's also important to mention that Dynamics 365 is a multi-entity system, multi, that means as many legal entities as I need, as many different currencies, and as many different languages. There are over 40 languages that are supported. So what's nice is that you can start simple, just with one entity maybe in the US, and then rapidly and quickly roll out new entities as needed. So here I'm focusing in on the US company, and to the right-hand side here I can see all of the tasks that are necessary to close the books for the period of March 2017. So I can see that I've got to translate some, do some currency revaluation, and then in the AP side, make sure that AP ticks and ties to the general ledger, stop period, so on and so forth. And notice I can see who's responsible for those and then what the due date is. So the nice thing is that if I were Cassie, when I log into this screen, I'm going to see only those items that are related to what I have to perform. And notice that as I hover over pretty much any record within the system, but in this case, because it's a person, it will give me more information, and I have the opportunity to instant message her, make a phone call, send her a quick email and say, hey, Cassie, it looks like this is kind of falling behind, what's going on, and collaborate with her. So Dynamics 365 is very collaborative as well. And then if Cassie needs to, jump in and reconcile the general ledger, when she clicks on this, it's going to actually bring her to that screen or that report that she can then run, and it will show to her, hey, GL and AP are all in sync, and I can go ahead and tick that that box off, and it will fall off the list. So getting back, let's look at a couple other workspaces so that you can kind of get the sense how, again, these are purpose-built, and each of these, while they're configurable, are good starting points for users to access into the system. So we'll look at vendor invoice entry as an example. So here's the place that maybe the AP manager can come in and kind of get a snapshot. Notice on the left-hand side, I have a set of what these are called live tiles. So it will show me, and every time I come in here, it will show me an updated version of this. I can see, okay, I've got 58 vendors. I have 426 unpaid vendor invoices. The whole system is very workflow oriented, so I can put in an invoice and route it based on any criteria, and I can see those invoices that are pending and assigned to me. So I can just click on any one of these tiles and get to those details or those exceptions that I need to focus on during the course of the day. So rather than having to hunt and peck and look for exceptions and things of that nature, I can just come down and say, okay, these are the ones that are assigned to me, and drill down and work through those process to approve them or request more information. So let's go ahead and just look at one or two more workspaces. So another key functional area in the dynamic solution is around budget planning. So not only do you have the ability to load a budget so you can do comparative reporting within Dynamics, you can also configure a process that is unique to your organization, and the configuration is very easily defined. So I can see here I'm the budget planner, and I've set up a process that I do an initial budget preparation where I maybe copy last year's budget or last year's actuals, increase that, maybe pull from other areas in the system, HR, whatnot, to establish that baseline budget. And then through workflow, I can submit those out to the departments, and they can go ahead and put their details into the budget. And then the next step is I have a CFO review meeting to kind of go over those plans. So this whole workspace is really intent around me as the budget planner keeping track and having visibility to the entire process. So I can see here in budget plans for this particular OpEx budget who has been submitted, which ones have been approved, so on and so forth. So again, these, hopefully you're getting the sense that, and in a minute we'll see how we can configure these, but how Microsoft has really put forth a lot of effort into accumulating all of the finance functions into a very user-friendly viewpoint. So that's how the workspaces work. Of course, we always, just from a navigation standpoint, I could always navigate in what I call sort of a traditional function and go and look for any one of these. So, I could look in accounts payable and I can see all of the functions. Maybe it's a setup item that I don't necessarily need to have embedded in a workspace, but, I can go up and set up new payment terms or something of that nature. So I can navigate through a very traditional menu path there. Or what's really cool is I can just come here and say I'm just looking for vendors and I don't necessarily know how to navigate there. I'm not sure which workspace that's on. I can just do a search here and just say all vendors and hit enter, and it will search for the page that meets that criteria. And here I'm looking at what is now called a list page of all of the vendors that are in my system. So notice that up at the top I've got a ribbon. This is probably looks very similar to those of you who use Excel and PowerPoint and Microsoft desktop products and Office 365. In fact, it looks very much like Office 365 if any of you are users out there. So I've got my tabs. So here on the vendor, I can, do different functions, right? Maintain, put a vendor on hold, set up new contacts, set up their bank accounts, look at existing transactions, what their invoices, outstanding invoices are, what the balance is, if I have 1099 information, if I need to procure. So it's very sort of process oriented. Then maybe I need to set up a new purchase order for this vendor, or put in a new invoice, or settle credit memos against debit memos, or whatever the case may be. So very straightforward from that perspective. And then as I look at the individual records down here, and this is true regardless of whether I'm in a list of journals, whether I'm in a list of vendors, AP invoices, purchase orders, so all of this functionality that I'm talking to functions the same way. So notice on the right-hand side, I've got Acme Office Supplies, and I can see just some high-level embedded intelligence in some fact boxes, what the last invoice was, what that invoice amount was, when I last paid them, which organizations and legal entities have access to this vendor, so on and so forth on the right-hand side. Every single page or list page within Dynamics is configurable. Excuse me. So notice I can resize these columns. It almost is like a little Excel spreadsheet here, right? I can sort up, sort down. So just like I can do in Excel, I can sort high to low, low to high. I can do filtering. So maybe I want to search for those vendors that are only in a particular vendor group as an example. So notice I said give me everything that's in vendor group 40, and I can see the filter up there at the top. So again, very user-friendly, especially for finance folks who are used to working in Excel and kind of familiar with, rows and columns of data. So then notice as I move down to citywide advertising, the information on the right changes. If I want to personalize this form and maybe add new fields that I don't see here, I can go ahead and just highlight the area that I want to personalize, and maybe I want to add a field that I don't see. Maybe I'm looking for whether this is minority owned, or I need to see bank account information. So I can just go ahead and, or what's the credit limit, or what are they're doing business as, and I can just go ahead and add any of those columns, and notice that it's added that information back. So maybe I'm looking for those vendors that I'm missing W-9 information on, or those that are minority owned. I can really easily change the look and feel of the layout of this screen. And that's user by user, and then the next time I come back into this screen, I can go ahead and it will remember that this is how I preferred to see the layout of this screen. So I can also, remember how I said we could change workspaces. I could say, let me add this to my workspace, and maybe I want to add this to the vendor invoice workspace, and I want to show this now as vendors in group 40, right? And do I want to show a count on that tile? And I'll say okay. So we'll go back to the workspace in a second, but before I do that, I can also, I have got interoperability with Microsoft Excel, so I can take any list page regardless of what it's a list of, and then just export that to Excel. So lots of interoperability with Excel for sort of frontline, quick and dirty reporting, if you will. So maybe I want to then go into Excel and, you know, produce a graph or something of that nature. So again, two-way operability. I can also use Excel as my front end, and maybe I need to do some updating and with the right controls, of course, be able to push that information back with the same validation from Excel into Dynamics. So if we go back now to that workspace, and I just refreshed, notice now I have a new tile in there called Vendors in Group 40. So the value of this is really to empower the users to get information out of the system, set up exception tiles so that they can come in and be as productive as possible. And the fact that this is not an IT effort or, you know, something that's highly specialized and that I need to be really trained on how to do, again, brings the cost of ownership down, but also making the users very, very productive. So one other area I want to talk about is the journal processing workspace. So again, this is the area that I'd come in and I can see everything that is not posted, those that I've prepared that have not posted, those that have been routed to me via workflow. So if and I also have a sort of a tabular view of that. So here I can see on the right-hand side, these are all my unposted journal entries. So for a second, I want to go into one of those journals, this adjusting journal with workflow as an example, and talk for a minute about the chart of accounts and the string, if you will, the chart of accounts entry into Dynamics. So there, if I may, I'm going to just illustrate this through a PowerPoint, because sometimes I feel like one picture is worth 1,000 words. So the account string in Dynamics 365 is made up of a main account, which is what we call chart of accounts, or that's otherwise known as your natural account. That's your cash account, your liability, your revenue account, so on and so forth. And then there's a concept of what's called the financial dimension. I've also heard these called segments, things of that nature. So the two together are what's called your chart of accounts structure. So dimensions are unlimited. These might be items like a department, a cost center, a project, a business unit, a product category, whatever the case may be. So you can think about that as if you're eventually going to want to produce a P&L or a balance sheet or anything of that nature by any of those dimensions, then you can very easily set up a dimension and then you can then report off of that very easily. So again, those two elements combined make what's called an account structure. And the account structures, you can have many of those that are rule-based. So as an example, your balance sheet accounts, cash and whatnot, maybe you only want to capture business unit because, you know, departments and projects and things of that nature might not make sense in that context. But maybe for expense type accounts, you want to capture some more granular detail. You want to know what department, what cost center, what project, things of that nature. So Dynamics is very configurable in that you can have as many dimensions as you want, and then you can lock down those dimensions to tie to either a set of accounts or just an individual account. So we really encourage you to use as many dimensions as you need, because if one account requires a dimension, then all of the other accounts aren't going to be cluttered by having to ask for that information when a journal or an entry is put into the system. So it makes it very powerful from a reporting standpoint. So if we go back into the system now and just take a look at how this manifests. So here I can go ahead and I'm going to just key in a journal from a manual perspective just so you can kind of see how these work. So notice I'm going to, you know, look for my prepaid expenses count. I can either enter the number or I could type prepaid and it would come up with the same list here. So notice that as I select that in my demonstration system, I asked for just a business unit and a department for that particular account. So we'll go ahead and put you know, an amount in, and then on my offset account, maybe I put in another account, postage. Now notice how the system opens up more opportunity for me to narrow down, well, who am I posting this for? Business unit, department, cost center, item, and project is what I'd like to capture for that particular account. So these, you know, are the dimensions that I've enabled, and then I provide the system with a list of values for those dimensions, and then I define rules so that all of the entries that go into your system end up very clean. They're not mismatched. They're not cluttering unnecessarily by enabling these dimensions. And again, this ties into financial reporting. So on those dimensions, I'll have the ability to then roll those dimension values into from children, child level posting into parents, grandparents, and so forth. So we'll get into that in a little bit here as well. So speaking of reporting, I'm going to go back to my homepage here and talk a little bit more about the reporting aspect. So we've seen some embedded intelligence just with the fact boxes when we were in the vendor invoice entry and saw related information. There's also the ability, I'm going to go into looking at ledger budgets and forecasts. So here's a workspace that enables me to view, you know, budget entries into the system, look at those accounts that are under budget, over budget, things of that nature. But notice as I scroll here, I've got some related reports I can see because, you know, again, I'm looking at ledger budgets. I can see actual to budget from a graphical standpoint, and I can see total expenses this year. Notice as I hover over, it will tell me what the name of the account is, what the dollar amount is. And if I have a question on any of this, I can simply click and drill down into the details of that. So because I've started from an expense area, by account category, it's going to drill me down into a business intelligence page called expense analysis. So here is a very powerful part of the dynamic solution in that Microsoft provides out-of-the-box, they're called content packs, which is really a set of metadata and reports and analysis type reports that are pre-built and ready to go. So again, bringing down the total cost of ownership. This is an included piece, and the content packs, we'll go through a few examples of those, but a great starting point for doing more analytical type reporting out of your Dynamics system. So everything is drillable, so notice as I hover, I'm looking at that details of the expense, and I can see expenses this year and as opposed to budget by quarter. Then I can drill down into the periods. Notice I can see more of a list type of what those expenses are and what that is accumulated for during the course of the year. And then notice at the bottom I've got a lot of tabs. I can do, look at revenue analysis, and notice it's broken out by different legal entities, and again, drill down where need be. Cash analysis, what's my cash by legal entity, which bank accounts are those sitting in, what am I looking at from a quarter-to-quarter perspective. So again, all down the bottom here are the pre-delivered, out-of-the-box analytical type reports that I have available to me, and we happen to be looking at just one area in the financial performance content pack. There are also others that are available. There's a cash and liquidity content pack. There's a purchase and spend analysis, so I can see, purchase by vendor, purchase by product, purchase by period, so on and so forth. Revenue analysis, right? So here I've got my revenue analysis. I can go home here and see sales by business unit. I can see all my business units, drill down. I can see the different product and product subcategories, down again to a little bit more detail, and sales by customer group. So again, very easy to put these together. So again, this is your sort of your starting point, but if I need to put in a new report as an end user, I can just go here, grab, maybe I want to look at sales, and notice it's to the left-hand side. It's kind of, everything's very Microsoft friendly, so I'm just going to do a Control-C, Control-V, and notice I have now two boxes, and I can just drag and drop those, and I can look at sales, and maybe I want to look at those sales by business unit, and I want to look at that as a pie, and here I want to look at the sales by product category and keep that as a bar chart. So again, super easy. Then I can go ahead and save this report, and it's going to be, sales analysis, whatever the case is. And then I also have access to put that out into publish to the web, publish it out to PowerPoint. I can create my own dashboards, right? I can say, okay, gee, this is a personal favorite. I want to go ahead and pin that to my home page or my personal dashboard. Is the screen appearing okay for everybody? Maybe Josh, you can give me some feedback on that.
I can see it fine.
Okay, great. So again, I can pin these to my home page and create my own dashboards. And then let me just give that a second here to catch up. I don't know, it slowed down there for just a moment. So we'll come back to that. But then I can go ahead, and now we're back in the Dynamics solution. And remember, we sort of drilled down on expenses. And then getting back to the configurability, I can go ahead and click on that add or remove tiles, and I can pull from any of those reports that I have and pin those back to my workspace. So if it's a personal favorite, I can pin that to my dashboard in Power BI, or I can even embed that within the dynamic solution itself. So while we're going to carry on a little bit here, and we're going to talk a little bit about workflow. So every functional area sorry guys, you just open that up again.
We always have to expect something on a webinar, Carol.
Of course. Sorry about that. I'm just going to log in again. Okay, let's get back there. So every area is also comes with out-of-the-box workflows. So it might be a journal entry, it might be a vendor invoice, it might be a purchase requisition. So these are all configurable items or work processes that come with a starting point that are really easy to configure to whatever the needs are of my particular company. So one area, again, is that purchase requisition. So I can go into employee self-service. I know a lot of life science companies in particular, the users need to be able to get supplies and items into their organization quickly. And so from a self-service perspective, wrapped with workflow, I'm able to go in and request the items that I need. So here, this might be your, end user's homepage, so they wouldn't necessarily have all of those workspaces. They might just have one particular set of functions that they can perform. So if I go and say I want to do a new purchase requisition to order some supplies as an example, I can come into the purchase requisition work area. Notice I can see a status of everything that that I've requested, and I can drill down and see the status of any one of these items. And I can also produce a new requisition. So here it's just going to walk me through the process, and I'll say, I need, you can see in my history here I'm ordering a lot of supplies, but I'll say I need even more supplies. What's my request date and need by date, and then I just go ahead and say okay. And it will prompt me, well, what's the reason? I just need, general supplies, and I can provide more detail if I want to. And then, excuse me, And then I can just go ahead here and say, okay, I'm going to add what I need. So notice as I click on the add products, what will come up is a catalog of items broken down by category that I'm able to order from. They might be items, they might be services. I can just go ahead and do a random search, if I know, hey, I'm looking for a keyboard or a laptop, or I can just go ahead and select by category, office and desk. And notice these are all English-like terms that will drive down underneath the covers the GL codes. So none of your users need to know general ledger codes or anything of that nature. All they need to know is what it is that they want to order. So I'm going to just go ahead and order a keyboard and go ahead and add that to my requisition. And that will go ahead and drop that onto my purchase requisition. And then I can continue and add more lines if need be. Or I can say, gee, this is good, this is all I need for now, and I can submit that through a workflow process. And so based on the rules, so I can just come up here and I'm going to go ahead and then just submit that. And so what will happen now is the system will go through and look at whatever criteria I have configured within the system to determine how it needs to route this through the system. So it might be by dollar amount, it might be by item, it might be by category of item, it might be, oh, if it's coded to a particular project, it needs to go to that project manager. Whatever the case is, they're all very configurable workflows that are available that probably a power user or somebody like that would configure in your organization to flow that transaction through the system in the way that you need. So then, again, coming back to her workspace here, if she refreshes that, then she'll see the requisition. She can always see the status of that particular requisition, if it's in review, who needs to approve that, if it's one person, multiple people, where it stands. So I can just always come down here and say view history, and it will tell me exactly where it's been and where it needs to go before it's approved. And then from there, the requisition, again, based on the rules that you want to enable, could even, in this case, since I knew the item and I had a catalog out there for these particular computer supplies, it will go ahead and auto-generate the purchase order out to the supplier for me. So if I come down here and look at one that I just submitted earlier, you can see that the related document or purchase order got generated, and somebody in purchasing didn't even have to touch this. And then maybe in my workflow, if I don't know the supplier and I don't know what the dollar amount is, or I don't know where to source this, I could go ahead and route that to somebody in my organization who actually can do that. So last but not least, I also have segregation of duties within the system. So I know this is really important to finance folks, again, that they want to make sure, you got to keep separation and documentation on your processes. So just as a quick example, I have some rules out in the system that say, I can't go ahead and set up a vendor, set up a new bank account, put in an invoice, and pay it all in one swoop, right? So if I go ahead and try to add something to a user that violates any of my rules, notice I'll go here and I'll say I'm going to go ahead and add that, and it will say I can't do that because I have a user role that says, and it'll tell me what the problem is, that I can't set up a customer, apply cash, and set up a bank account and whatnot. So again, segregation of duties. There's also embedded help throughout the system. So if at any point in time I get lost, I can go ahead and hit the help button and it will bring us up some context-sensitive help, or maybe I'm doing a less common task. Maybe I set up, a brand new natural account not very often, but I know I've done it once or twice, and maybe I just need some help on how to do that. Maybe I don't even know where to navigate to set up a new account. I can just go ahead and search my help, and I can see, oh, okay, it says create main account. That looks like what I want to do. And the system will show me some help text. Go to General Ledger, Chart of Accounts, Main Accounts. So I can read through that, obviously, but this is a little bit laborious, right, to go through, okay, Chart of Accounts, Accounts, Main Accounts. Instead, what I could do is hit this process here that says Start Task Guide. And if I do that, what will happen is Dynamics will walk me through on a step-by-step basis, right? So I go through and I hit Main Accounts, and notice now it will, once I get it right, it will take me to the next step, and it will say, okay, now I need to click New to create a new account. And then I'll just click New, and notice how the task guide is walking me through step by step what I need to do. And not only is it teaching me how to do it, it's actually doing it. So after I'm done with this process, it will actually save that new account into the system. So this is great for user documentation, help, compliance, things of that nature. So again, very powerful set of capabilities. So I'll go ahead and stop that. And so to wrap up, so some of the benefits of Dynamics 365, particularly for finance, purpose-built. So again, through those workspaces, having the ability to increase productivity, putting those like-related finance activities together under one functional area so that the users can process items in a very exception-oriented way, adaptable in terms of I can change those workflows, route items through the organization as I see fit. I can change the look and feel of the screens. Intelligence, I've got a lot of out-of-the-box reports, those Power BI content packs that are ready to go as a starting point, and I can add to, very analytical in nature, but I can drill down and get to details as well, and helps those users turn information into insight. And very productive from the perspective of, user-friendly, lots of workflow capability, routing the transactions to the right person at the right time, and really driving efficiency in your organization with those workflow tools. So with that, I will stop, and it sounds like we can open it up to some questions.
Carol, I think you can skip forward one or two more slides so that Vanessa can chime in for a second, and then we'll go to questions.
Oh, sure.
I do have two questions so far. Everyone else, if you have any questions, please let us know, and I'll ask them here after Vanessa wraps up from an industry standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Carol and Josh. Just real quickly, so we can get to some questions, I wanted to point out some specific items that are of value to life sciences groups. Number one is the ability to validate an environment if you are an FDA, if you require FDA validation. The first series in our webinars was by Onshore Technologies, and that is a group that we work with often to enable all of the documentation that is required for validation. Secondly, Carol mentioned the workflows. We have the ability to build those. They're easy to build. They don't take a developer. It's a power user inside your organization, specifically geared to life sciences. They tend to have a very robust approval process around purchase requisitions and all the way through PO and then to the vendor invoicing processes. So that is easily accommodated with out-of-the-box solutions. Carol also mentioned again the segregation of duties. So that is out of the box. That also is configurable. So if your organization is larger or smaller than the sort of pre-configured suggestion, the ability is there to add to that or reduce that as necessary to meet your needs. Next on the list is all the Microsoft products are moving to an OData type of communication, which allows information to be shared easily across systems to let them speak to one another. So it's a very simple matter nowadays if you're running external systems such as Concur, ADP, BillPay.com, some of those types of things. It's very simple to integrate those systems so that they can speak back and forth and eliminate some manual entry there. And then last but not least, specifically we have the ability to at the inventory level, and if you happen to be like biotech and you don't really have inventory per se yet and you're still at the categories level, we have the ability to maintain and validate authorized users if that's a requirement. So that's pretty short and sweet on my end, but we'll get to the questions, and then feel free to chime in and let Josh know if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Perfect. So we do have 3 questions right now. We'll start with the most recent one since I think both of you recently touched on it. Nick wants to know, what is AOS and how does it relate to segregation of duties?
AOS?
Could you clarify the question, please?
Nick, if you could type in what your further question is, I'll move to the next one and come on back to you. What size organizations do you see using the Dynamics 365 platform?
We see all types from sort of the pre-manufacturing, the real small startups, all the way through to multi-billion-dollar organizations who are live. And Vanessa, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, exactly that. We've got organizations that are in startup. They're strictly R&D companies now. There's no revenue per se, with less than 10 users, all the way to a current project I'm currently working on has almost 700 global users around the world. So it's very scalable.
Okay, Carol, I think I'll let you start with this one. What is the difference between Dynamics AX and Dynamics 365?
Yeah, so Dynamics 365 is inclusive of all of the functionality that was in AX 2012 all the way through to R3 and beyond. So 90, I'm going to say 98% of the capabilities that were in that core solution have been migrated to Dynamics 365, and Dynamics 365 can be deployed in a cloud. It could be cloud and edge, so meaning some of what you're running could be on-prem and some could be in the cloud, or it could be all in the cloud. So there's different deployment options that became available, as well as, I'm not sure whoever asked the question if they're familiar with sort of the look and feel, that it's all been re-platformed into that very modern and sleek user interface that I was demonstrating. So that's sort of at a high level the differences between the two. But the nice thing is that it really lifted all of that deep and rich functionality that AX had into the solution. So while it's a newer version, it isn't new by any stretch of the imagination, because we have all of the features and functions, or like I said, about 98% of them. There's still some that are being migrated forward, but most of them are available. And then we have a lot of net new capability as well, such as the Power BI content packs and things of that nature.
Great, and I think you covered most of what this next question is, so I'll ask it and you can see if you have any parting or final words on this. But how is Dynamics 365 being positioned relative to Dynamics desktop products? So I'm guessing that's looking at the previous on-prem Dynamics ERP solutions.
Correct. Yeah, so again, different deployment options, cloud and edge, which is a hybrid, and then if need be, you can even have some local content that's on-prem, and it ties back to on cloud-based master data, if that makes sense.
All right, those are all the questions that I have. So I think we can go ahead and wrap up this webinar. Again, we have another webinar here in I think 3 weeks that covers the manufacturing side of D365, like Carol said earlier, to start this more functionality than what we're looking at today, and we'll start covering those in the next couple of sessions. So thanks again everyone for joining us today. Carol, Vanessa, thanks for your time, and we will go ahead and end the meeting now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.